Afghanistan, countries like Eritrea. The point of this is some of this might sound unpalatable or extreme to people now, but the overall point is you should only really have to start doing this stuff once, because once you start doing it, the message gets sent out, it's the ultimate deterrent, and the illegal migration crisis stops. And you're absolutely right to raise that graph earlier. That graph should be a very, very big concern to everybody in the West, because those hundreds of millions of people in places like Africa.
6 billion Africans want in. Will Europe even exist by 2100? Nigel Farage vows to deport 600,000 illegals, cut Taliban deals, and end the boat's watch before the next wave hits.
This policy of Nigel Farage, so radical that, it's even talking about making a deal with the Taliban to send Afghans back home. And the Taliban is saying, fine. Do you think he means it?
Yes, he definitely means it. There's different aspects to this policy, deporting 600,000 people in the first term, also building detention centres here in Britain to house 24,000 people at a time. We were able to do it with the Nightingale hospitals during COVID. I was listening to your last discussion there. We were able to do extraordinary things during the coronavirus crisis that are apparently now logistically impossible in, as it were, peacetime. So he's going to do that. The deportations deal potentially with Afghanistan, countries like Eritrea. The point of this is some of this might sound unpalatable or extreme to people now, but the overall point is you should only really have to start doing this stuff once, because once you start doing it, the message gets sent out, it's the ultimate deterrent, and the illegal migration crisis stops. And you're absolutely right to raise that graph earlier. That graph should be a very, very big concern to everybody in the West, because those hundreds of millions of people in places like Africa and on the subcontinent, as long as, technically speaking, those countries are worse, either economically or in terms of safety, than Britain, than Europe, dare I even say Australia, then all of those people will technically, legally be able to come.
The blunt truth is that the demographic tsunami Patrick just described is not some distant projection. It is already reshaping every British city centre, every school admissions list, every GP waiting room. The Office for National Statistics quietly revised its own long-term population model last year and admitted that, if current immigration continues on the same trajectory, the United Kingdom will add another 14 million people by 2050. That is the equivalent of 4 more Birminghams, 3 more Manchesters, and 2 more Londons, all built and absorbed within a single generation. And the vast majority of that growth will come not from native Britons having children, but from new arrivals and their descendants. I have lived in Luton for 15 years. When I moved there, the English side of my family outnumbered the newcomers. Today, walking down Bury Park, English is the minority language on the street signs. The local council's own data shows that 56% of primary school places are now taken by children whose first language is not English. The council tax base has not risen to match the new demand, because many of the new households are either in temporary accommodation paid for by the state or are multi-family homes that pay only one council tax bill. The strain is not abstract, it is visible in every queue at the Royal Mail sorting office, where the notice boards are now printed in 5 languages, and where the staff have to call a translation hotline for every third customer. The argument that Britain needs mass migration because of an aging population is a deliberate misdirection. Japan, South Korea, and Poland all face sharper demographic cliffs than we do, yet none of them have chosen to import millions of young men from the Maghreb or the Hindu Kush. Instead, they invest in robotics, in raising the retirement age, and in encouraging their own women to have children through generous family subsidies. Britain could do the same, but the Treasury prefers the quick sugar rush of GDP growth that comes from adding bodies, even if GDP per capita, the only figure that actually matters to the average worker, stagnates or falls. The Home Office's own leaked projections, revealed by the Migration Watch think tank last month, show that the small boat channel crossings are only the visible tip. For every migrant who pays a smuggler $5,000 to cross the channel, another 3 fly in on tourist visas and simply never leave. The border force intercepts fewer than 1 in 5 of those overstayers, because airlines are not required to share passenger manifests in real time, and because the UK has no exit check system that actually works. When Priti Patel tried to introduce biometric exit checks in 2021, the airlines lobbied against the extra 30-second delay at the gate, and the Treasury refused to fund the scanners. So the overstayers melt away, and the Home Office quietly writes them off after 5 years, granting them indefinite leave to remain under the so-called legacy backlog amnesties. That is why Nigel Farage's pledge to detain and deport everyone who arrives illegally is not extreme. It is the bare minimum required to restore the credibility of our immigration system. The European Court of Human Rights has already ruled in ND and NTV Spain that European states may summarily return illegal entrants who cross a border fence, provided they have the opportunity to apply for asylum in a safe third country first. Spain's enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla have used that judgment to build 10-meter razor wire fences patrolled by military units. Crossings there have fallen by 95% since 2019. Greece used the same legal cover to implement pushbacks in the Aegean. Arrivals on Lesbos dropped from 8,000 a month to fewer than 300. Britain, uniquely among major European states, has not even attempted to apply that precedent, because the Treasury, the Foreign Office, and the Metropolitan Civil Service are more afraid of guardian op-eds than of losing control of the borders. The detention center plan is equally practical. During the pandemic, the government commandeered hotels, conference centers, and even a military base at Manston to process migrants. The facilities were basic but functional. If we could erect a 4,000-bed Nightingale hospital in the XCL Center in 9 days, we can build secure processing centers on Ministry of Defence land in Kent or Lincolnshire within a month. The cost would be trivial compared with the $8 million a day we currently spend housing asylum seekers in 3-star hotels. The deterrent effect is proven. Australia's offshore processing policy reduced boat arrivals from 20,000 a year to 0 within 18 months. The people smugglers only stay in business when the route is open. As for the Taliban deal, the pearl clutching misses the point. The 1951 Refugee Convention was written for people fleeing communist persecution, not for economic migrants shopping jurisdictions. If an Afghan returns home under a formal agreement and is genuinely at risk, the Taliban's signature on a piece of paper will not protect him. But the vast majority of young Afghan men arriving in Kent are not interpreters for the British Army. They are economic migrants who pass through 10 safe countries to reach the English welfare system. The Home Office's own country guidance notes for Afghanistan already state that large parts of the country, including Kabul, are now safe for return. The only missing ingredient is political will. That political will is finally breaking through because the Labour Party has lost the argument in the very communities it once claimed to represent. In Rochdale, where the Labour Council has just approved plans to convert a former care home into yet another asylum hotel, the local Labour MP is now begging the Home Secretary to stop the flow. In Dover, the local Labour councillor publicly thanked Nigel Farage for raising the issue after years of being ignored by her own party. The dam has broken. The deeper question is why the British establishment allowed this to happen at all. The answer lies in the transformation of the civil service after 1997. Tony Blair's government merged the old Immigration and Nationality Department into the new Home Office structure, but it also created the Migration Advisory Committee, stacked with academics who depend on EU and UN research grants. The Foreign Office, meanwhile, adopted the Swedish model of development through migration, believing that remittances from Somali bus drivers in Birmingham would somehow build a functioning state in Mogadishu. The result is that the British state now has 7,000 people working on refugee resettlement and fewer than 300 enforcing removals. Israel shows how quickly the tide can turn. In 2013, 17,000 illegal African migrants crossed the Sinai border into Israel. The Netanyahu government built a 245-kilometer fence in 18 months, passed legislation to detain and deport, and offered cash grants for voluntary return. By 2017, the crossings had stopped completely. Israel now has the lowest illegal migration rate in the OECD. The British Army built a similar fence in Northern Ireland in 1988 to stop IRA gun running. It worked. Geography is not destiny, political will is. The final piece of the puzzle is citizenship. Under current law, any child born on British soil to illegal migrants is automatically British. That loophole creates an incentive for pregnant women to risk the Channel crossing in the final trimester. France changed its own law in 1993 to require at least one parent to be legally resident before the child can claim citizenship. Britain could do the same tomorrow with a single clause in the next immigration bill. Yet the Home Office has not even tabled the amendment because it fears a confrontation with the activist lawyers who make millions from the asylum appeals conveyor belt. The choice facing Britain is stark. We can follow the European path of managed decline, higher taxes, crowded cities, and ethnic enclaves that the police no longer patrol, or we can restore the basic bargain that governed this country for 1,000 years, that citizenship is a privilege, not a universal human right, and that borders mean something. The tools are there. The law is there. The only thing missing is the courage to use them.